I think the most frustrating thing, there's a few frustrating things, but one is the time for diagnosis and not joining the dots up. So, you know, when you have a cyst or when you've got anxiety that's not of a normal level or period pains, that things are recognised earlier and that's explored, that actually it could be endometriosis. More education for girls and also boys in terms of how they can respond to those things. So having children myself, they're fully aware, they've seen me at my worst, they know what to expect and are very sympathetic when there is pain, but you know, you've got to normalise life as much as you can for them as well. And to a degree, sometimes you mask things because you don't want them picking up on that all the time. So I suppose the family support bit, the wraparound care, because in between seeing consultants there's nothing, you're on your own. The employer side, you know, how they respond, it's not really something that you want to have to go to your manager and discuss. They might not be female, so it's even harder. And whilst, you know, some workplaces are really understanding of the appointments and the medical side of it, there's much more to it than that. So you might be having a really off day, you might have brain fog, because it can affect your concentration as well, depending on where you are at that point in the month. And there's certain days in the month when, yeah, it might work for that person, typically me in some scenarios, to maybe work from home and be flexible, because the thought of going in and dealing with all that on top of working as well is a lot. And whilst I've done it and I've not had time off work, which is not always the right thing to do, I want to be present. I want to be able to do the job to the best of the ability. So it's how can the employers work with you to make sure that can happen. So my experiences of endometriosis as a whole, and the healthcare and the awareness has changed slightly over the years. So as a teen, when I first was struggling and had the symptoms, endometriosis wasn't something that was heard of. So I think that was a matter of, I suppose, the research and the time put into that as a condition, and whether it has increased in numbers or it was just the awareness of it that wasn't present at that time. I'm not 100%, but I know going forward now it's on the news and you hear a lot more about it, and the celebrities coming forward, which really helps raise the profile. But for me, it's really sad that it takes so long and it's so invasive to get a diagnosis, because this is your life, you know, and you're spending a lot of your life in pain and having symptoms and trying to, when it affects the quality of how you live your life, like any other pain or illnesses, then you would hope that it'd be something that they can put money and research into to find results. And maybe it is because we're female, and you know that's half of the battle, in that you know, we're expected to undergo some of these things such as period pains and childbirth, and it's constant, but it shouldn't be. You know, we need to be, I suppose, valued and understood, and that awareness raised, and to find solutions so that women can be the best version of themselves and not have to worry about that. Nobody should have to be in pain and be dismissed when you go to the doctor. Nobody wants to be poorly. Nobody wants to have endless appointments and you know, have to sort of push your case that much that you feel you're not heard. And I think the biggest thing with this one, it is more of an invisible condition. So because you can't see it, it doesn't mean it isn't there and it's affecting you. In some countries, I know already it's a disability. You know, where do we stand with that? There are certain things that would help. Sometimes, you know, you're having a bad day, you've got leg pain, and you know, going to the supermarket and carrying a shopping bag is exhausting. Other days you can do it more easily. It just really does depend. So how do you deal with those things when there's not that support and those mechanisms to rely on, like other people have that have a seen disability, and also approaching those conversations, because you shouldn't have to explain yourself all the time. You should be able to have that awareness with the people, maybe at work or other places, where you need that extra little bit of understanding from people. But I think the biggest thing is there needs to be more people trained in endometriosis. There needs to be follow-up appointments, wraparound care, treatment plans that are suited to you, not because they think it's the right option. So things need to be explored by case and as an individual. And there needs to be more testing. So I've had MRI scan, only scanned the bottom half of my body. I don't know if endometriosis has gone elsewhere. They were checking for nerve damage in my legs, because eventually you can end up with nerve damage. Luckily there isn't at this time, but you know, how do you know these things if you're not offered those tests and treatments? You shouldn't have to follow up with blood tests. You should be having regular blood tests, because we know it affects iron levels, and all of those things. So where's the treatment plan? I think there needs to be a message to healthcare practitioners, the government, all the people that can actually do something to support people living with endometriosis, which is increasing rapidly. There needs to be the support there. There needs to be the access to GPs, nurses, endo specialists, and not necessarily just the gynecological part, because we know now that it's a whole body thing. It's not isolated to one area. So how are they being trained for that? How can we diagnose it without such an invasive procedure? How can we be made more aware as females earlier on, if you recognise any of the key symptoms, to get the help quickly? Because for many it can lead to fertility problems, it can lead to issues with your organs. You know, this is a really, really serious condition that I don't think is given the seriousness that it rightfully should have. And I think you know, people need to listen and act on it, and help women be able to live a pain-free life. So as a woman, I feel that on occasions there are symptoms that would be put down to the female symptoms, conditions that you may naturally experience. So I think that's an important point to get across, is that actually as a woman there are certain things that you shouldn't expect, that shouldn't be dismissed, and you're not made to feel like that's something that is normal, and that is, you know, whether it be a GP visit making you feel like you know, the things that you're bringing up are quite minor, when actually you're the best person to make that judgment, because you're the person living with it. It's your body, you know how you feel, and I think you need to be given the time and space to be able to talk about those things, not go to the GP, you can only talk about one thing today, because they're all interconnected. So I think there's a feeling there. Definitely as a woman, there are things that are certain points in your life where you would be told, well, you know, you can get period pain. That's just something that women sometimes have to live with. Let's look at a contraceptive method or something that might alleviate that pain, as opposed to exploring the crux of it and what's actually causing that pain, because we shouldn't assume things. There's a lot of assumptions. And I do think some of that comes down to being a female and what you should and shouldn't expect. But those things are not to be expected. If it's affecting you leading a normal life and you having to mask things and, you know, deal with pain, then that's not normal. The one thing I'd like to get across, and that's really important for me, is that women feel heard, and that when you do go to the GP, that you listen to, that it's not dismissed, that actually you are taken seriously. You know, the pain's not in your head, you're not imagining it. And yeah, we just want to get to that solution and treatment quicker.
No one listens, no one cares, you know, it is what it is.
I wasn't believed for such a long time.
I don't sleep.
I was constantly
labeling
dismissed
soft or dramatic, nothing wrong with you.
It's like more of a stabbing type of pain.
The surgery was about 8 hours long. I had sort of like some stents.
Dismissed by doctors, not investigated. It was only when I went back to see a female doctor that she referred me for an x-ray.
They just think you can't have a
period.
I'd been going into work,
that sort of
broken
thing.
rib.
And women,
You know, struggling to
doctors
breathe.
and surgeons,
was bedridden.
because if they don't
My
experience
parents
what
became
you
like full-time
experience,
carers because
it's all in your head.
even things like eating was impossible some days, and showering for myself, I was just in that much pain all over my body.